most men are much better off doing something rather than talking about things. Guess what? Manifestation comes from putting in work. It turns out that
sooner or later you're gonna have to do something.
the crops don't just show up out of nowhere. It turns out that you need to go ahead and plow the fields, put seeds in it, water it, tend to it, and then you'll go ahead and get a yield. Power in a circumstance comes from being necessary. The person that needs the other person less is the person that is the one in the power position. Power comes from wielding responsibility and bearing it well. Adam wasn't created for Eve. Eve was created for Adam. That's just what it is. Doctrine in scripture should go ahead and change to suit the culture. Heck no. The culture should be informed by sound doctrine. Don't be the person that is optional. Be the person with options. So this week, we're going to go ahead and get on to rules, 9 through 12 of the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. So there are some things that are going to be in today's episode, like other episodes past, where the rule itself sounds like it is morally bankrupt on its surface. But these laws are tools in a toolbox. You can go ahead and decide to use them for good or for ill, and that is all in the matter of how you apply them to your life and to your circumstances.
Or basically, you can use them or leave them, but just the big thing is know that they are there, because knowledge is power.
Yeah, and the overarching theme for laws 9 through 12 is how nice and logical and reasonable guys often lose so much in our society because they don't see these things happening in the background.
Yeah, rather than they're in the midst of making things happen to them.
Yeah. It's funny because it brings up the whole like Game of Thrones thing with Ned Stark and how like he went ahead and fell victim to a lot of this stuff. And this just alludes to a whole conversation we had in pre-production.
I love that I get, especially when I teach the kids Latin.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time talking about active and passive voices. And that's the whole thing. It's like you either make stuff happen or stuff happens to you.
Sure. All right. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right. So law number 9 is win through actions, never through argument. So this is interesting because this reminds me of stuff that we went through back when we were reading The Rational Male. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Rollo put out was go ahead and demonstrate, don't explicate, which is do the thing, don't talk about the thing. What do you think you would go ahead and look at to express this idea from a woman's perspective?
When somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Okay, that's a really good way to sum it up.
Or like walk the talk or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's mainly, especially, so from personal experience, when somebody, if you think about when you are in trouble, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters. But like, who are those people that you can call them and they'll, at the very least, come and sit with you in whatever you're dealing with?
The people that you have experience with having done that in the past.
Yeah, the people who've done that for you. And if you think about who would you do that for?
Right.
Those are great friendships that sustain through years. And it's interesting for me personally as a self-check, especially to gauge relationships. When somebody is going through something, especially having been burned or overextended and burnt out in the past, I need to have an assessment, a ready, rapid assessment of who I am and how we stand with them, like with this other person, where I am with them and where we're at, so that when they say something, it's like, oh man, that sucks. Or if it's somebody, what can I do? I don't even say, oh, well, let me know if you need anything. No, I say, what can I do for you? How can I help you? That's it. Like for the real friends of mine that I'm like, pledge my loyalty, that is what I do.
Sure, because it's not
give them an opportunity to say no.
It's not some flippant offer of assistance. You are making a genuine and heartfelt offer of support. Like, I will tangibly do things. What is it that you need?
Yeah.
And that's like, it's a very different thing than most people would recognize in our society.
Yeah. So that's a trait of who I am. Mm-hmm. And if I show you that over the span of years, and then somebody is going to tell you something about me that is just like a passerby, like a transient in our lives of a long-standing friendship, somebody's going to tell you something and you're just going to believe that rather than what I've shown you over years, please leave. That's fine. I'm good with that.
Right.
It's heartbreaking to know that, but it shows me more about that person that would believe somebody that wants to malign me more than whatever they said about me.
Sure, because it calls their discretion or their discernment into question.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, what are they using as a litmus test for what is the good, the true, and the beautiful? Mm-hmm. Right. And if they do not have a solid foundation to make those judgments, then they probably should be a little bit further out of your sphere.
Yeah. The only thing, honestly, that truly like gnaws at me is, wow, I wasted all that time and energy on somebody that did that. What a waste. Like I could have been really living, doing life with, and investing in somebody of better quality.
Sure. But the thing is, you were operating based on what you had at the time.
Yeah.
And so I think that lamenting does yourself and your decision making a disservice in a lot of ways, especially in that context.
Yeah.
Especially towards the beginning of this circumstance that you're bringing up. And I would say that where I would go ahead and put more accountability on you is after I was like, you really need to be distancing yourself from these people. And like, I went ahead and saw this thing that you didn't see directly. And I'm like, hey, like, I'm not here to tell you in this instance, cut them off, but you might want to distance yourself. And maybe I had failed you in that. And maybe I should have been like, hey, these bitches are problems. You need to get rid of them.
I don't think you could have, honestly. In that situation, I don't think I was even ready to hear that. But it would be nice, honestly, to have somebody alongside, if you could possibly, but who knows you enough to know what's best for you.
Yeah, so that's interesting because I think this is an interesting application of this law specifically, right? The idea that I could have taken that as food for what I could have done differently in that circumstance, but you weren't ready to hear it.
Yeah.
Right? So I could have made the argument to you, but that doesn't go ahead and actually convince you because you were emotionally convinced of this in another way.
Yeah, it's almost like it reminds me of when we had our first child. I was pregnant with our first child, and people are like, "Oh, sleep when the baby sleeps," right?
Sure.
Get your sleep while you can. And it's one thing to know that, and it's another thing to know that and be in the first 2 weeks going,
doing the zombie mom thing.
This doesn't help me. Can you give me that sleep that you were talking about right now in this moment, like where I am just at the end of myself?
Sure.
But yeah, talking about that, honestly, I definitely wasn't ready to hear it. But honestly, it's part of who I am, is the reason why it took so long to grieve the loss of the relationships.
Sure.
As terrible as they were. And it was funny because it wasn't good for me. Just, it's a lesson and you've learned it. It's fine, move on. But I could not move on.
Right.
So the disconnect.
So going along with this law, I think this is a big reason why I think that therapy is a terrible tool for most men. I think that most men are much better off doing something rather than talking about things. And when you talk about the context of relationship, like talking about your problems, like in a marriage counseling perspective kind of thing, rarely actually solves the problem unless it's coupled with action. Yes. Because if a guy was to go ahead and say, hey, look, these are the things that I have observed that you do to cause conflict and strife in the relationship, the average woman is going to go ahead and take exception to that, shut her mind off, and be resistant for the rest of the session. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. So many times I've had friends who have gone, especially to couples counseling, they get in there, and especially the wife, handpicks the therapist, talks to them beforehand, all of this stuff.
And poisons the well ahead of time.
Tries to, because I have seen so much where the therapist starts taking the husband's side.
And they got to find a new therapist.
And they got to find a new therapist because she doesn't like what the person said. It's just like, that's just, what do you think?
The lack of accountability.
That is why, one, when we went to couples therapy, it was just like, we did the homework. That was what we were there for.
Sure.
It was for a purpose of getting to practice things that came from an outside source rather than doing more of the same, which was not working.
Sure.
And I think that's why the therapist that I had recently in 2 bouts of it, she really was like, when I came up on her roster the second time, she was like, I'm so glad that you called me for this. I'm so, because I think I was kind of an A+ therapy patient, you know?
Sure.
Not because I want to
Be a people pleaser.
I want senpai to notice me, but
Because you did the homework.
but because it was like I appreciated her, and I went to her specifically because she had a list of objectives running on a document, and we struck through the ones we've achieved, and we add more, and we take. It was great, and every time I was like, "What can I practice now?" Mm-hmm. And honestly, when I have these issues, I was like, "What are the tools that you have that would apply to this?" Mm-hmm. And she appreciated the fact that I would even ask that.
Right.
It's very true for men or women. If you are just going to a therapist for them to listen to your problems, you can go to a bar and have the same thing.
Sure. And the thing is, it's probably going to be less effective because then you end up with all this moral indignation behind it. And you go ahead and get upsetty spaghetti that your partner is actually saying something to somebody that you are trusting to go ahead and provide help. And the fact that your vulnerability is out there in the open with somebody that you went ahead and signed an agreement to go ahead and be vulnerable with for the sake of improving your marriage, and then you go ahead and get upset about it is crazy to me.
Worst waste of money ever.
Right.
Worst.
So I think that most of the time, if a guy has his act together for the most part, that the best things that he can do to influence his marriage is not talking about stuff, but just doing things differently. Because women can cue into subtle differences and nuances in ways that us men lack in a lot of ways. I only have 256 crayons in my crayon box. You got like 1048 or, some crazy number of crayons in your box. And I mean, like, shoot, that's a lot better than 16 crayons that a lot of guys have. But either way, it's just one of those things where you guys spot differences in just the tiniest things, and it will trigger insecurities in the back of your mind, and you go ahead and try to write a story for why the things are what they are.
Yeah.
And then you'll get upset about the story that you made, whether or not it aligns with the truth.
That's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing, which is why I would go ahead and encourage guys, don't try to argue with your wife or with your woman. It very rarely goes well. If there's a standard that needs to be approached and laid down, put it down, set it, make sure it's understood, and then move on. There's no need to go ahead and dwell in it, because if she's going to spin out of control, she's going to spin out of control anyway. And if you have her spinning out of control because you're setting a boundary or you're laying an expectation or anything like that, you're going to have the same problems anyway, and you're doing your part in bringing the problem up and letting it be known and then changing behaviors so that she can associate that specific conversation with the story that she's going to weave in her brain from the actions that you're taking.
Yeah, and it's funny because like talking about like weaving a whole backstory in her brain, it's like a landmine that is set out for you. You have no idea that it's there. But it is interesting. I think there have been like conversations about things or like, us talking through difficult stuff. And it does come out sometimes where it's like, yeah, I had this whole backstory built up in my brain that you didn't know about. And that's what I was operating on. And you didn't even understand. It was like arguing, literally, you would have, if you didn't like cut the nonsense and like go to, okay, where is this coming from? It would have been like arguing with a brick wall. It would have been the worst, literally. But it does remind me of something that my therapist did where, when I would start to get like emotionally like aggravated or I would start to like look like I was going to cry, she was like, stop. Where's this coming from?
Right.
And she actually literally meant, where in your body are you feeling this?
Okay.
It's like, oh, it's in this part of my brain. I'm feeling like this is where the itch is.
Sure.
Or even like, this is a tightness in my chest. Like she would almost be a monitor for biofeedback.
Sure.
Literally in real time. It was so trippy. She's such a unique person, and I really respect her as a medical professional in this very difficult profession.
Yeah. So I think it's just interesting how, like, when you try to go ahead and start an argument and you dig in and all of this kind of stuff, you can go ahead and end the argument and be right and still lose.
Yeah.
Right? Because the social consequences that you bear sometimes are in excess of that which was actually at stake winning.
Yeah, it's like, do you want to die on this hill? Like, we talk about that all the time. Do you want to be right or do you want to be married?
Sure. And the thing is, like, for guys, we have to go ahead and be thinking through things a few steps at a time, right? We are supposed to be playing chess, right? Where we can go ahead and think 6 or 7 moves ahead and figure out what are the likely outcomes. And that's just a matter of growing in maturity and experience over time. This is why there are requirements to be an elder and why there's requirements to be a deacon. There are things that you just have to grow into to be that person, right? It isn't something that you just come out of the chute at 18 and you're ready to go at.
Yeah.
You know, another reason why, we need to go back to having some rites of passage for boys, because at 18, we have this huge swath of completely different ideas and levels of maturity and levels of competence and basic understanding of the world around us.
Yeah. But
Right?
in the eyes of the law, you're an adult now. Like all of a sudden the switch flips where it's not really like that.
And they're all voting.
Yeah.
That's the worst bit of it. They know nothing about what's going on,
I know.
but hey, they're legally able to vote, right? Such is life.
I mean, I understand why, legally we need to have something like that. But honestly, especially when it comes to child rearing and our family traditions, we do have these rites of passage. I think that needs to be a thing in all family cultures that is not tied to age, but it is looked for at a certain age range.
Yeah.
See also the talk that we did about advices to sons and all of that stuff.
Sure. And it's interesting because, I was going down this rabbit hole today about what rites of passage mean and what they look like and what they were in times past. And we had this conversation in pre-production before you got here about that. And it just led me to think that there needs to be something that, like, it isn't like a congregation that does this or like the church universal that does this, but somebody should go ahead and do this and make it a summer camp or something like that. Or it's like young man camp or something where you go ahead and go through the roots of philosophy. You can go ahead and go through rigorous physical challenges. You can go ahead and get the basics of what it should mean to be a man. And at the end of it, you go through a ceremony and put forth to the society writ large, this person is now a man.
Yeah. Some version of that is what our friends on YouTube do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think it's a cool thing. I would love to see that in my lifetime. Maybe for my grandkids or something.
Yeah, maybe so. The thing is, like, there's so many things that would go ahead and spawn from that, right? Because if you had this common experience and you guys stayed together, right? Like there was an online community of men that was associated with this.
Yeah.
It'd be really cool for those guys and be like, hey, my daughter is coming to be about time to go ahead and be eligible to find a mate. Hey, here are the things that are about her. What do you guys think? And then, like, it would be a really easy way to go ahead and maintain their purity and then to have, like, objectively scrutinized men in a pool, right? Because they've all gone through this catalyzing experience together.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, yeah, this guy went through, in this such and such year, he's 25, he's got things going on. Maybe he'd be a good fit, right?
That'd be interesting to have a thing where, like, they were all brought up under the same premises for this rite of passage kind of time.
Right.
And then on their different, tracks, because men and women are different. And then have them all meet each other and be like, watch what happens.
Okay, that adds a whole nother layer to it, right? Because then now all of a sudden, now you've got this idea of, hey, we have these rites of passage for men now. And then you go ahead and you establish a completely separate thing for rites of passage for women. And then there you go. Now maybe the catalyzing event could be like an end of camp ball or something.
Me think of the Parent Trap where the boys' camp came over and they had a little dance and whatever.
That's pretty funny. Okay,
but I mean,
we're cooking on this one.
Kind of how it's like, sort of like we're bringing it back.
Sure.
Because that's how high society used to be.
I think we should bring it back.
Like little girls, they grew up and they were tutored and all that, and they went to private school or whatever, and then they went to finishing school.
Right.
And they would learn all this stuff to be a lady in society. And then they were turned loose in, like, the social circles.
Right.
And all the mamas are like Pride and Prejudice, all the mamas are like, oh, maybe this one. Almost, not so, like, kind of icky market, like Bridgerton marriage market. They,
Sure.
they came out and said the weird thing. And I thought it was pretty trippy that everybody was like, oh, let's have Bridgerton parties. I'm like, y'all. But then there's, like, all these feminine women, like, these feminist women, like, doing that. Like, I want a Bridgerton ball. It's like,
You do understand what that's involving, right?
but they banned, like, Gone with the Wind during the pandemic.
Crazy.
during the whole BLM thing.
Anyway,
Bridgerton's fine. Marriage market fine. What?
that was a hell of a sidetrack. Let's go
Yeah,
ahead and
that's
get
funny.
back to it.
I've been super, like, my chaos meter is turned up super high. So you gotta.
All right. So, the basic idea of this is, hey, don't just go ahead and talk about stuff, do the thing, and then let the people around you react to the thing that you were doing. And this is kind of like how leaders, they act and they can go ahead and tell people a general direction, but so long as they are acting in accordance with those directions that they're providing, it makes it much easier for people to follow along. Uh-oh, that chaos look on your face.
Oh, I'm just office reference.
Okay.
We're good.
So the next law is infection. Avoid the unhappy and the unlucky.
You're gonna have to explain.
I'll give you some context. So you know how we go ahead and go to the Walmart on the north side of the town? And you can just feel it. It's a
Vibe.
different vibe, right? And so it is loosely associated with the socioeconomic status of the people around that area. For good or for ill, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
And you can tell a lot of times people on social media complain about being a victim and all this other stuff. And you find that those people are much more likely to have bad things happen to them because it's almost as if they magnetically attract it to themselves. Whereas the people that have an internal locus of control where they know that they have some agency in how the things happen in their life and that they can go ahead and reap positive consequences from their actions, generally good things happen for them as a result of their actions because they can see the agency and they're not just passive actors. So the idea of the law here is that people that are unhappy and unlucky have a general modus operandi that leads to that. And you don't want to have them in your sphere because they're going to magnetically attract that to themselves and they're real close to you. So you might get hit with some of the flack.
Okay, so it's like that thing I do. It's like you're here.
Yeah.
You are at the corner of the room, and I'd rather you be on the other side of the door.
Right. So I thought that you would intrinsically understand how this works
Yeah,
because
well, like
of
the words, but also
you're good.
My brainium space right now.
You're good. So like the central premise here is that emotional states are contagious,
Yes.
right? Is like when people are just unhappy and sad, like it is really weird to be the one guy that's like super happy in the room,
Yeah.
right?
Then you look like you should be institutionalized.
You look like you're the sociopath in the room.
I might be the weirdo in the room, I guess.
So this is why guys should read the room first and then decide whether they want to be in the room or not,
Yeah.
right? It isn't just, hey, I just got to go
Sorry.
ahead and exist wherever I am. You have agency to decide where you want to be for the most part.
Sorry, I got the wrong meeting. I'm just gonna go now.
Oh, it's in this room. I meant to go to the other room.
Apparently.
Yeah. So the other piece to it is that some people export chaos and that they're going to go ahead and disrupt natural order wherever they find it. And so you have to decide whether or not that makes sense to keep in your sphere.
Yeah.
And how close to you want to keep it. Because don't get me wrong, some chaos sometimes is fun, right? But order is generally a more stable environment.
Yes.
For family,
It is.
for marriage, for children, for society writ large, for adulting, right? So there is a time and a place for fun, and there's a time and a place for order. That's all I'm getting at,
Yeah.
right?
It's just, that's really funny. On it, what I would, word of advice, honestly, yeah, when you find that chaotic person that adds like that chaos goblin energy to your life, I mean, that can be fun, but you really want to be very discerning about the kind of like chaos goblin who always complains about the chaos in their life.
It's like they invited in the first place, and they're
Yeah.
like upset that it happens.
It's a chaotic black hole. Don't get sucked in, because that's the one that's going to cause problems a lot.
because they're a sucking pit of need that can never be filled.
It's always, everything's an emergency. Their life is always falling apart, and they're always going to call you because you are closest to them.
Well, because they're like energy vampires, and they just suck the life out of you.
And you're wondering why this person doesn't have any close friends. They're so nice, but it's like because they've
Worn them out.
consumed them all, and they've left the empty pile of husks.
Right.
Don't be part of the pile of husks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if things seem a little too good to be true to start, that's usually an indication that you should be looking for dead bodies around, right? Because they can go ahead and put on a good face for a little bit, but
Yeah,
then
that's
like,
the thing.
do they have friends? What are the tangible results of their behaviors? What do they have going for them in life? if they don't have anything going on for them in life and they have all of the trappings of looking like they're doing great, where's the poop? Something's up. It may be that they are completely a unicorn and an anomaly and all of that. Totally possible, but it's not likely. So you want to go ahead and make sure you're exercising discernment to figure out which is what.
Can I say a weird thing?
Right.
So this has been my personal experience. I'm not at all saying that this is everybody's experience. But when people use the woo-woo word manifestation.
Manifest it. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
What do you got?
There is something, I mean, honestly, the older concept was the growth mindset. And after that, it was kind of like positive thinking or whatever.
Sure.
Okay. Now it's like this manifestation thing. That one is sort of icky to me because the kind of person that I've heard say that kind of thing and do this kind of thing all the time, like almost as a hyperfixation a lot, are those black hole chaos goblins.
Sure.
Because they will try again and try again. They can't because they can't escape their own chaos because it's inside. Careful with that.
Yeah, it's funny.
Me, though.
Hey, if you're just sitting back trying to manifest things, guess what? Manifestation comes from putting in work. It turns out that
sooner or later, you're going to have to do something.
the crops don't just show up out of nowhere. It turns out that you need to go ahead and plow the fields, put seeds in it, water it, tend to it, and then you'll go ahead and get a yield. I mean, that's how farming works. That's how a lot of things in life work.
See previous law. That's why they're together. They're close to each other.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, like, being a chaotic person is a lot easier to spread than being somebody of discipline, right? Because discipline isn't fun for a lot of people. For other people, discipline feels good, but like, it's just one of those deals, right? It's just a thing where it is easy for people to view somebody that lives a disciplined life as a killjoy if that's all they have going for them. This is why this isn't just
in moderation, everything.
Moderation for the most part. There's definitely some red lines in there. You'll go ahead and figure those out.
Yep.
If you want more clarity on that, be happy to go ahead and provide it to you. But moderation in the vast majority of things is usually a good thing. Now, another piece of this puzzle is sometimes these relationships are not relationships that you can directly influence. Like, you can't change who your father is, and you can't change who your aunts are, right? That's just what it is. At some point, you're going to have to deal with the fact that you have relationships that are in your sphere that you can't change. What you can change is how you associate with it, right? You can go ahead and put them further away in the sphere, or you can bring them closer to you in the sphere. And that's all reasonable adult kind of behavior.
You can leave the uncle across the room at the Christmas dinner, family dinner.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, you went ahead and talk about the people that will complain about the chaos around them, but don't go ahead and act in any way that'll change their circumstances. If you are disloyal to that, and like as a friend, because you are distancing yourself, there is no dishonor in that, right? Because you are just acting in accordance with your priorities, and you are deciding with whom you keep company.
Yeah.
And that's a normal adult thing to do too. It's about boundaries at that point.
That's the best part about what we've talked about before. We're kind of like moving into this more like how to act sphere, like this pragmatic kind of topics of discussion. Whereas before we were talking about like how to align your, like figure out what your values and priorities and stuff like that, your moral compass is. That's the beauty of like, if you know who you are and what you're about, then you can make these decisions a lot better than if you didn't. You're just making it all willy-nilly, like for no good reason.
Sure. And it's interesting because like staying in this kind of relationship doesn't make you a martyr, right? You aren't dying for some righteous cause in that. And so in like fashion, leaving that relationship shouldn't be something you should be ashamed of and be made to feel less than for changing your circumstances because those circumstances didn't fit your needs or your priorities.
Yeah.
It's like funny. Nobody's going to go ahead and blame somebody for leaving an abusive relationship.
Obviously not.
It's a concept. But it's just a different level of abuse.
It's interesting that the relationship, like the friends that I talked about before, I knew this is not a large area where, you know, millions of people live. It was only going to be a matter of time before I, you know, saw somebody, one of those people again. And when I did, I was just like, my instant reaction was like, I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, like, don't like skim the edge. It was interesting. I was just like, almost like, you know, like magnets of opposite poles or the same poles, like going, repelling each other.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. It was interesting. I was like, oh. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I don't want to see them. I don't want them to see me. No, it was just like,
Which is really funny.
Really interesting.
And I think it's interesting how you go ahead and handle that kind of thing differently than I would, right? At this point, I'll just go ahead and take up my space and go. And if they happen to be in my way, then they happen to be in my way and like whatever.
No,
I just pay them no mind as opposed to repellent.
Honestly, like honestly what I thought I would do was just like shy away and shrink. I did not, but it was just like, oh, like I thought there would be some sort of like still grievance for what was.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had none of that.
Right.
It was just like, I just don't even want to see that. Like I don't even want to see it. That's what it kind of was. But I was like, I'm here. They're going to be gone soon, so that's fine.
So I think that's a pretty good thing to go ahead and wrap this law up on. The next one is learn to keep people dependent on you. So on its surface, this sounds super icky.
Yeah, it does.
Right? So let's go ahead and cook on this one. Power in a circumstance comes from being necessary. The person that needs the other person less is the person that is the one in the power position, right? So let's go ahead and talk real plainly about the employer-employee relationship. The employer that established and maintains the system in which the employee operates has substantially more power than the individual employee most of the time. Now, I'm not talking about exceptions to the rule like key person risk and things of that nature. The average associate level or mid-level manager is almost entirely replaceable at any given point in time. So even in a 2-week notice kind of situation, a lot of times it's not that big of a deal. And like, okay, they could have been like a team lead or whatever. Okay, that's fine. We can go ahead and train up a new team lead. Not a big deal. And it doesn't mean that we don't wish them the best in all of their things, but we just understand that there's a difference in who's in power and what is actually needed for the business to operate. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's interesting because a lot of times people will go ahead and confuse this and say that independence is the supreme state of power. And I think that interdependence is usually the thing that'll go ahead and cause there to be more power dynamics. Because if you're like an independent contractor and like you're a boss of one person, like really nobody needs you to do what you do. Somebody else can go ahead and come and do the same thing that you do and offer the same services or whatever. And for the most part, you in and of yourself are replaceable. And so it puts you in a much more weakened position compared to other firms that would be doing the same services. This is why a lot of times small businesses that never have documented processes and procedures are not saleable on the open market because you have key person risk. And so when you operate as an independent contractor, sure, you're a boss of yourself and you're an army of one, but that doesn't make you more powerful in the circumstance. In fact, that introduces increasing levels of risk because if you're not working, nothing is happening. Whereas if you're a business owner and you have the puzzle that you have created for your customers to buy, different pieces of the puzzle can be interchanged and can be made to fit that vacancy in the puzzle. But if you yourself are the puzzle and you have like a sickness happen or something like that, you are in a much more vulnerable circumstance than you would be as like a higher level manager in a company or a company owner that has repeatable processes. Because worst comes to worst, if you don't want to be doing the actual thing anymore, you can train somebody to do the thing and then sell the business to somebody. Or sell the business to one of your employees that wants to go ahead and take it on down the road, that has the capability of making it happen. There's so many ways that you can do that if you have repeatable processes and procedures and people to do the thing.
This is where the modern woman's abhorrence for submission comes from.
Cool. Work on that for a while because it sounds like you got a lot.
I'm just like sitting here thinking, yeah, this is talking about,
Being a strong,
essentially an
independent woman.
employee being a cog in the wheel.
Right?
If I, Lord forbid, died tomorrow, you could find somebody else who could come and do probably better than I can.
Yes. No disagreement.
But stating that I am a traditional woman who submits to her husband and all of this stuff, and saying, I will also have to say that I objectively, divorced of all of our shared history and like the sentimentality of our relationship, I am entirely replaceable. I am literally the dependent.
Right.
And they don't want to say that. They don't like it.
They don't want to believe it.
That's where all of this strife that is born, that has shaped a culture, has come from.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, they don't want to put in the work to be irreplaceable, right? Because, sure, you are replaceable, but it would be difficult to go ahead and replace you. But it would happen.
Yes.
Right? Because I would be a very eligible bachelor that would be very attractive to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And that's just one of those things where I think that's what helps to make our relationship work as well as it does, because I'm not afraid of losing you, but there is a passive sense that you do have a fear of losing me. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think that helps keep you in line in ways that we can't say in our daily lives, right? Because it sounds really icky to say it out loud, but that is like the truth that lies beneath the surface. That all really strong marriages need to rely on. Because if we go ahead and look at the relationship between Christ and the church, Christ doesn't need the church. The church needs Christ. It is.
Like,
right?
we more than need him, because he just did everything and he doesn't even want anything from us. And that, I think that is the biggest thing why people I don't even know what to do with that, right?
Yeah.
So they invent things like having to do X, Y, and Z, having to say this, that, and the other, stuff like that, to have something to do for. And it's like, no, just leave it. Like, why are you trying to do too much?
Yeah.
And honestly, that is more of that sinful, carnal, undisciplined, self-serving nature. Mm-hmm. It's like, I need to be, and it's like, for why? Why do you need to be important and special?
Because it's pride is what the deal is.
Exactly.
That's where it comes from.
Exactly. Like, it's just interesting that it's just like, this is where all this, modern women mumbo jumbo has come from. Mm-hmm. It's like, but why? Why do you need to be irreplaceable? Why do we need that? Because, honestly, if you think about how fragile life is, it could be gone in an instant. I'm glad that there's somebody else who can, do better than I even could.
Sure.
That's great. The thing is, I'm using what time I have and what space I have to its fullest to build something that will last longer than I.
Right. And I think that's honorable in so many ways. And the idea that, be irreplaceable, I think that for guys, when guys want to say, I don't want to be needed by anybody, they fail to recognize that power comes from wielding responsibility and bearing it well. Right? They fail to recognize that responsibility and authority are intrinsically linked. If you expect to have authority, you have corresponding responsibilities that go alongside that.
It's interesting because that is the very nature of authority and responsibility, is that somebody needs something from you.
Correct.
You are providing something to someone. The very nature of it. I don't want anybody to need anything from me. Everybody leave me alone. It's like, no, honestly, that is going to go, again, you can't fight your biology. That is how men are wired.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because it turns out that when more people need stuff from you, you are more powerful. And if you have the ability to go ahead and provide more things to more people, then it just grows this self-licking ice cream cone where so long as you're maintaining the systems involved, that you can go ahead and serve more people with the systems that you're involving and creating along the way.
And that's how they slowly are built out, because you are serving more and more people.
Sure. Or in increasing levels of depth, because there's multiple ways to serve people.
Because we are multifaceted beings.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just very interesting. And it's like, that it goes back to the curse. This is why this exists. Men are wired to be needed. So that's why they're given the exercise of authority. And women want to be cherished and felt to be special and loved. That is what it is to love a woman.
Yeah, just the fact, like, that's really interesting because it comes up in apparent contrast to something that you said earlier. And I think this is where people will really get wrapped around the axle and very confused, is you brought up the idea of being replaceable. And a lot of people would go ahead and get really bent out of shape about that.
Spaghetti.
But that is how I exercise love to you, is that even though that is true,
out of everybody else you could have had, I'm here.
You're here and you are gonna be here. And that's the way it is.
And that should breed gratitude.
Right.
That should breed absolute gratitude. And that is how love within the marital relationship flourishes, is being grateful for what you do and all that you provide. And out of everybody else, you picked me. Rather than the inversion of that. You hear it so often. And that's why it just grates against my very nature of who I am as a traditional woman, that like, I'm so lucky I got her. What? No. And that's what I want men to kind of wake up and figure out, that it's like, she's lucky to have you. If you are worth your salt at all, she should be grateful that she has you, that you picked her.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the whole feminization of society as a whole, right? Is that we go ahead and learn to create and cultivate our relationships around women, which is a inversion of the natural order, right? Because Adam wasn't created for Eve. Eve was created for Adam. That's just what it is. From the beginning, it has been this way. And this is why when you see couples, the woman wears the pants, there are a lot of problems that typically come with it. Don't get me wrong, there are exceptions to the rule.
That happens. You have to be very mindful and intentional about how you navigate
Right. But the world operates in generalities, right? Stereotypes are the way they are for a reason. And yes, exceptions to every rule exist. It doesn't matter.
Great marriages where, you know, she kind of wears the pants.
Sure. But the thing is, that doesn't change what the natural blueprint is. And if you're in exceptional circumstances, I'm not really talking to you about it. That's just what it is. Live your life.
We're just here to provide the feedback and the have you considered.
Sure. Now this goes, another piece to this puzzle is the idea that dependency doesn't mean that you're establishing dominance. Just because you are dependent on me doesn't mean that I am a domineering spirit and you have to be forcibly submitted. No, it is a voluntary process on your part, and it is a win-win for both of us.
Part of loving a woman is to know and understand the nature of the authority that you have over your household, over your wife, over your children, and that you understand. And that's the thing about women desiring to be known.
Sure.
You know what your woman needs ultimately, even if she doesn't like it, just like with parenting. It's like, I don't like you right now, but I do love you, but I just don't like you right now.
Yeah.
That's okay, because it is what is best for the individual, the wife personally, but especially a lot of the times, especially if children are in the mix, it is for the overall vision of what we have for the family, which you should have talked about before you ever had kids, when you first got married. What are we doing? What is our vision? What is our purpose? What are we moving? What are we building toward?
I think that's why there's so much brokenness now, is because these things aren't really talked about, right? Is you're hot, I'm hot, let's get it popping. And then, oh, hey, look, there's a kid. Is what happened. It's like the natural consequence.
When you spread enough seed, sometimes that soil gives you presents.
And that works on both sides of the equation. And the thing is, going back to, hey, some of the ills of feminism infecting the church is like, you've got so many problems like this, even going on in the church, where this whole doctrine of mutual submission is trying to go ahead and take root and get people to believe that, oh, hey, who cares about the natural order? We're in modern society. Like,
that's not applicable today.
Doctrine in scripture should go ahead and change to suit the culture. Heck no. The culture should be informed by sound doctrine. We are getting things backwards, which is why we speak so loudly and with so much conviction. That's just it.
It's like, I thought Jesus Christ was supposed to be the same yesterday, today, and forever. But no, it doesn't apply in our times.
That's not right. So I think it's interesting because Some people would go ahead and take this idea of people depending on you, creating power for you, and would go ahead and turn it around and say, well, if people are dependent on you, then that means that they're exploiting you. And I think that's a really weird way to look at it, but it comes from like critical theory where everything is a power dynamic and everything is a power struggle.
And I mean, essentially it is. The thing is, if you are being exploited, that, especially in today more than ever, that is by permission. You have in some way given somebody permission, just like those little micro dynamics in a relationship where you just throw up your hands, go whatever. Again, see Adam's passivity. It's like you just go whatever. I'm not going to even fight about it. It's not worth it. Okay, cool. They will take that ground.
Sure.
And then again, there will be another decision where if you throw up your hands, that will take that ground. And then you're like, how did we get here? What happened? It's like, welcome to today.
Yeah, you kept giving up ground until now you're on the edge of a cliff and that's all you've got. And this isn't to say that you should fight over everything.
No.
But if you decide that you don't want to fight over so many things, then you end up with all of these incremental concessions.
And then you're like, what happened?
Right. So I think that's kind of interesting. And then the next bit that goes alongside this is by being incredibly competent at something, you create your own gravitational pull, right?
That's where we get those balls of sucking in every bit into the chaos.
But I think that it can work in a positive way too.
True.
Because if you, like, say you are a business owner versus independent contractor, like if you are the best at a certain thing, you create a customer base just by being the best, right?
And the ship captain thing.
Yeah. And the trouble then is you have to go ahead and set limits and boundaries so that your sanity is left intact because you're serving these people.
Yeah.
And usually it's about that time that you should think about becoming a business owner rather than an independent contractor. And this is where you got to start building systems and processes and things so that you can bring people on and scale, because there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many energy drinks that you go ahead and drink before your heart explodes, right? That's just what it is.
But also, like, thinking about that part of it, that is where people are exploited, is if you don't take that step to go, this is what I am able to accomplish. This is my bandwidth. This is my availability.
Yeah.
And realizing that, especially if you are the guy, you know,
Right.
Not everybody is entitled to access to you. And it's interesting to see people who operate that way. Not very many people want access to you anyway. But they're acting like there's so much demand and there isn't. That's where you're just like, shut off, shut down. It's like, I'm being exclusive. No, you're not. You are being
It's a marketing ploy at that point.
like nobody cares.
Yeah. But it's interesting because it is often that people don't recognize when the opposite is true. When people feel entitled to the time and attention of others, as opposed to recognizing that people have boundaries.
It's like, yes, I pay insurance so that I can have access to your care. But in finding a genuinely great health professional, you appreciate their craft. You appreciate their time, especially in this day and age where it's a good person who can take a look at the grand scheme of things and to think like our kid's doctor. He helped with our fourth kid, our youngest son, who was in the NICU for 2 weeks. And I saw that man twice a day at the NICU checking in on my baby. And I saw a different side of him than I had seen before, just seeing him once a year for pediatrician and every year for their annuals, because I have genuinely, thank God, healthy children. And seeing that he does that and then trudges back over there to his medical practice to see patients all day, and then comes back and he barely can catch a lunch and he barely can go home and be with his family. It just brought a new appreciation for, and once you're in a situation like that where you see kind of like a 30,000 foot view of an industry, then you think, oh my gosh, how many other things?
Oh, yeah. It leads you to a new appreciation for how the systems and processes in our society work in a lot of ways. Like, so many people take for granted that this electricity just flows and that the water just runs and that the internet is just streaming right now. It is taken for granted, and rarely is there much appreciation that goes to Largely it's guys that are maintaining the infrastructure for this to happen in the first place.
Yeah. Especially then, when ish hits the fan, like there's a storm and there's stuff's knocked out all over the city. Our power company has a map of all of the outages and you can just see everybody needs help. You're like, wow, there are so many things. And it says you can have a myopic view and just say, mine's not going to be available till 3 a.m. I can't wait that long. I need mine now. So does everybody else. And what's beautiful is when it says it'll be available at 3 a.m. and like 10:30, the lights come back on. Thank you, linemen. Thank you so much. And it's still storming.
Sure. And there's something to be said about under-promising and over-delivering.
Yes.
That's to go ahead and set expectations at a certain level so that when you exceed those expectations or even pole vault over the expectations, it makes it so much sweeter for the person on the other side of that interaction. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that in a lot of ways, there's a lesson for marriage there too. Is like, if you can go ahead and set reasonable expectations along the way, it gives you the length of rope where every now and then you can go ahead and go way above and beyond and it to be something special.
Yeah. This is really hard for men, I think.
Why is that?
Well, if you think about it, they go to work, come home, kind of be with their kids, be with the wife, do the whole hum. If you were just like a regular, like 9 to 5, especially like a laborer, and it's intense and it is drudgery, all day in, day out. And people just go, well, that's what you're supposed to do.
Sure.
So many times, especially for men, it is like, well, that's what he's supposed to be doing, right?
Well, that goes back to how men are only valued based on what they do in society. Yeah. And like earlier on in pre-production, we were talking about how generally speaking, men are revenue positive for governments and writ large, women are revenue negative for governments. And it isn't just like little things that cause that to happen. It's that men and women are valued for fundamentally different things, not just in our society, but in societies across the globe and has been since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And we were talking about different curses that were ascribed to us.
I mean, you can talk about, how men do this and they just like, it's so constant. And then you sit there and you just go, that's what you're supposed to do. But then when a woman is still, in the throes of child rearing and stuff, staying up with a sick child and, oh, she's so brave. Oh, and it, especially when you have kids and it's in the microcosm, yeah, it's admirable. We don't want to sit there and glorify it as if like it's this extra going above and beyond. That is what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to be kind of that lower constant, like electricity, like we're always there. And sometimes we need a little bit more and a little bit less. But essentially, it's like we are on 24/7. Whereas men, you guys do hard things like real quick, really cute. And that's how you are made, like your resilience is there for that. But I don't like how men are just like, it's just like with men, that's not what you're supposed to do.
Well, because they're different expectations.
Rather than when mom is in the trenches of doing what she's made to do. Oh, you're so brave. It's like, why are we qualifying these why the double standard?
Why the double standard?
I know why the double standard, clearly, but it's like...
Because the society bends over backwards for women. That's why.
I'm trying to be the girl to be like, why are we walking like this?
Sure.
But it's saying things like men are net positive and women are net negative. It's just like these things. It's like objectively, oh, that's terrible to say.
But it's reality.
But that's how we're made to be.
Sure. But the thing is, like, it's only bad because they believe they're equal, right?
Yeah.
Across the board.
And
as opposed to just being, happy with being equal in terms of moral value and integrity and worth and heirship, right? These are things in which men and women are equal. And then there are so many things where men and women are not equal. And just being able to reconcile those two things and being at peace with those things are things that are completely offensive in our culture.
It's like, just rest in what is the natural bent. Why are we fighting against it? Just rest in what is rather than trying to make it be something that you think it should be.
Well, they want fetch to happen. Fetch isn't going to happen. It's okay. So let's go ahead and wrap up this law with some practical applications. So one thing in marriage, I think it is better to have your wife be dependent on you from an emotional standpoint too. Like if you are the guy that is emotionally steady, it makes it real easy for her like waves to crash upon you as the solid rock.
Yeah.
And then she can go ahead and flow back and forth and she can do her thing, but you are going to be the constant source of power and strength and determination. And it'll help her to relax into her feminine. So in terms of business, this goes back to like, it's better to be a linchpin than a replaceable cog. I think, the more that people are dependent on you, the more power that you have, even if you're a worker. Like if you're a higher level manager that is like incredibly productive and you go ahead and are a force multiplier in your company, you have a much more solid position, just the average line worker that is doing an average job at an average time. And then in a social setting, like being the guy that organizes things puts you in a much better position than just being the guy that shows up, right? Because people are gravitating towards you. You're the one that is pulling the strings and making things happen. So in all three of those contexts, they are ways of expressing this idea of keeping people dependent on you, even while you're providing value. And I think that's the thing that people will go ahead and like instantly hear this law of having people dependent on you and then completely shut their brains off is they think that it's all exploitation.
I think mainly because this one, it's just if you're doing what you should be doing, this will naturally happen. This is not one that you're like, I need to make this happen.
Right.
This is one of those things that just is a natural product of productive male behavior, honestly.
Yeah. So this next law is really similar to one of the laws that we went ahead and discussed earlier, where it was basically talking about keeping your cards close to your vest. But the idea here is to use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your opponents. You don't have to tell them everything. You can go ahead and tell them most of the things. This doesn't mean you have to be intentionally deceptive. It just means you don't have to go ahead and show them all your cards unless the situation warrants it, right? Like, hey, if you're at the end of a hand and they called everything and you've got to show your hand, yeah, show your hand. There it is. But in the interim, you don't have to show your cards until the dealer says that it's time. And you can play the hand and you can play the person however you see fit.
Reminds me of something, especially I've told my girls, just because something is true does not necessarily mean it needs to be said.
Okay, that's true. So I think it's interesting because sometimes you can use this in really interesting ways in leadership, right? If you are willing to admit, one flaw that you have, you can be a relatable person, even though there's an obvious differential in power and authority and position. But you don't have to go ahead and say all of your weaknesses and all of that. You don't have to just blab your entire life story. You can just select what you share with people to relate to them.
Just enough. Because if you do that, you're just like emotionally peeing of pants. It's not a good look.
It isn't.
It does put you in a place of weakness.
Mm-hmm. I think that's interesting too, because an application of this rule that gives me pause in a lot of ways is, I think this is what makes simping so disgusting, is basically you're just giving the entire farm away. You're doing way too much and you're getting like nothing in return.
Yeah.
And so naturally that would go ahead and set up a disgust response in most guys because you can see that you're being taken advantage of and you're doing nothing about it. Though some guys don't see that they're being taken advantage of in that process. And I think that they've convinced themselves that, oh, if I just try a little bit harder, she'll like me. Or if I try a little bit harder, they'll accept me. And sometimes it's just not going to happen.
It's funny. Remember we were talking about the thing where it's like introduce yourself and then like in the mirror and then add another layer of it, record yourself and watch it back?
Sure.
Like that whole simping thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like do that same thing, like into the mirror, into a camera and watch it back. Talk about your significant other.
Okay. That's interesting.
See how icky it is sometimes. It's like, you see them just like gushing, oh my gosh. And it's like, wait, but what does she do? Like, because if you're sitting there talking about just how pretty she is and how she does her nails amazing and she has like a bunch of purses and stuff. Yeah, but what does she do?
Or like, what about content of character at that
Exactly.
point, right? Like, It doesn't have to be just execution
Exactly.
and stuff like that. It's like, hey, where's the depth here?
It could be very telling.
Well, it's interesting because, like, if you go ahead and use this law in an ethical way, it separates you from manipulators because people can easily use this idea of not telling the entire truth or not telling all of the things that are true and use it manipulative ends. You can use this for righteous ends as well. Just because you aren't saying everything doesn't mean you're being deceptive or deceitful. The key difference is intent. How you are expressing yourself and what you seek to gain out of it means all the difference.
Definitely. It's interesting. I think the biggest reason manipulative people don't like this is because they want a variety of things to just pounce on. And you're only giving a little bit. It's just like if you're trying to get like a glass of water and there's just a little leak in the tap or something and it's just a little stream, you're not going to sit there and wait for it to give you what you want in its entirety. You're going to find somewhere else to go. And obviously, if it's broken, if the tap is broken, you're not going to get anything. So it's like, forget it, right? So that's that person. They want to put nothing out and get what they need. And if you're just putting out a little bit, they're not going to wait for that. You're not worth their time. It's sort of like when the enemy, like people, especially when people start to wake up spiritually and start, they'll buy a Bible and whatever. That is when the enemy works the hardest, right?
Let's try to pluck the seed out of the field.
Yeah, when you are trying to move, and honestly, when you're trying to lose weight, when at that point, the dopamine from doing a new thing and the novelty wears off and it starts to get tough, that is where the attack is the word, and you have to push beyond that.
Because it can't just be motivation. It has to be discipline at a certain point.
Because people want to keep you asleep.
Right.
That is great. They're not going to mess with, like, the enemy's not going to mess with you if you're just like...
Because you're no threat to him.
Yeah, you're not a threat. But when the people who are secure in their faith, I'm not going to, obviously, Murphy be Murphying and the big things, it's like, oh, this is going to be a great end to shake you.
Right.
So that's when he's going to try it. But the secure ones, day to day, we're just doing what we need to do, nose to the grindstone. He doesn't want to mess with you.
Yeah.
It's when you start to want, maybe. No. Shh, go back to sleep. Shh.
Well, this also happens in social situations too. You talked about like losing weight and stuff. And this reminds me of the cheerleader effect, where like a lot of times this like mildly attractive woman will go ahead and have less attractive women in her cohort so that she looks much more attractive by comparison. And then whenever another woman in the cohort starts making changes to improve her profile, like say she was heavier set and then she's starting to lose weight.
Character assassination.
All of a sudden, character assassination and, can I get you some carrot cake or whatever, right? To go ahead and just like put the stumbling block. Diabolical, right? Because they got to maintain their power. And that attractiveness differential is the source of that power a lot of times. So let's go ahead and land the plane by summarizing just, the last 4 laws that we went through. And the big deal is to remember that don't argue with people in emotional circumstances. A lot of times it's much better to act and let people figure things out along the way. Likewise, don't go ahead and hang out with chaotic people without a purpose. Choose who you keep in your sphere of influence. Don't be the person that is optional. Be the person with options. And the 4th one is don't reveal everything. Control what you provide to people. These 4 things, when you put together, they're helpful in establishing self-respect, and it helps make that esteem that you hold yourself to visible to the people around you in how you conduct yourself. Now, all of these things can be applied in ways for good and for ill. Power is an unavoidable reality of the world that we live in. And it's just a matter of how we choose to act, understanding these things existing around us. Just because you think that opting out and choosing to be a powerless person, like that doesn't actually save you from the game. That just turns you from a more useful piece in the overall puzzle to a pawn to be sacrificed, right? And having responsibility and understanding over these things and mastering these things are the things that are going to help you to be a consolidated person to be reckoned with and to be contended with. And these are the kind of people that are movers and shakers in our world and have the most to gain and the most to lose by failing to abide by these laws. Do you have any last minute suggestions to the women folk?
It's interesting that a lot of these I've noticed, especially in just doing the overall summary, is a lot of that say less. Mm-hmm. We have a tendency, a lot of us, to say a lot of words, but say less and act more. Mm-hmm. Making moves and just not explaining them, but there should be less words out here, but there should be more words inside. There should be more thought and intentionality. And I think if this brings more mindfulness to how we conduct ourselves day to day, that's really advantageous.
Yeah, I'd say that'd be a huge win.
And I think that's the biggest thing why, honestly, being a traditional woman in a modern feminist world, it's actually increased my value. So thanks.
Way to go, guys. If you found value in this, I'd encourage you to subscribe. And if you're watching this as a clip, the full podcast episode is going to go right over there. Thanks so much. Make it a great day, everybody.